Dear world leaders, talking heads, experts, and media Nostradamuses. First off, before any of you accuse me of being a Russian stooge and a fanboy of Putin, sorry to burst your bubble, not the case. If there's anything I'm a fan of, it's freedom and peace, which unfortunately is in short supply these days to both the Ukrainian and Russian people. They're the ones being sandwiched and crushed by their leaders on both sides. Having lived through the past 2 years and having seen both the folks that lead us and those that supposedly inform us so blatantly lie, not just a little, but inundate us 24/7 with big, fat, bold-faced lies, forgive me, I'm a little skeptical of how things are going and how they're being laid out. How do I know something's not right? Easy. The same folks who were wrong about so much over the past 2 years are the same ones telling me which side to be rooting for on this one. They would have me simply believe it's about good Ukraine versus bad Russia. It's that black and white. Like I said at the start, I'm not an apologist for Russia nor Putin. But if there's one thing I know about life, it's that nothing is as clear-cut as folks would have you believe. When it comes to the truth, there's his version, her version, and somewhere in between is the truth. So, to all the experts, talking heads, and media mental midgets, there are a few things that are perplexing me about all of this, if I may. Number one, how come we weren't told about any of these bioweapon labs? Apparently more than one is known to exist. And when it was first mentioned, why was anyone who asked about them labeled a conspiracy theorist and quickly canceled? Sounds a lot like what happened to folks who had questions about COVID. Number two, why were these labs set up in the first place? And in Ukraine of all places, given that the project originated by some little-known politician named Barack Obama. How could no government officials know they existed? Number three, given that this labs were handling type 1 and the more deadlier type 2 pathogens such as Ebola, and knowing what transpired with Wuhan, especially if they fell into the wrong hands, as you claim they're imminently going to be, why wouldn't they have been closed at the first rumbling of an invasion with all deadly material moved to a safer location? Number four, how is Dr. Anthony Fauci connected to any of this? Given his past involvement with the Wuhan lab, come to think of it, where is the good doctor lately? Number five, is there an active and vibrant Nazi ideology in part of Ukraine? The reason I ask is because after the end of World War II, Alan Dulles, former CIA director, helped several German Nazi scientists relocate to Ukraine and thereby avoid the Nuremberg trials. Not only that, but history tells us that Western Ukraine was an integral part of the Nazis' base of operations, as they had both headquarters and bases there. As well, there were over 100,000 Jews executed during World War II in Ukraine. In modern times, the Azov Battalion is the armed wing of Ukraine's white nationalist movement. In 2019, Facebook banned the neo-Nazi group and all posts praising it under Facebook's dangerous individuals and organizations policy. A 26 human rights report concluded that the Azov soldiers had raped and tortured civilians during the 2014 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, I'm not saying I believe Putin, but one of the things Putin complained about in his speech leading up to this was the neo-Nazis. He went on to say that was why Russia's military was invading its next-door neighbor. It was about the neo-Nazi humanitarian crisis. Are we in the West now aligning with Ukrainian Nazis? Are we providing them with support? Are we arming them, giving them guns and rocket launchers and stuff? If so, is that really a good idea? Number six, do you think it would be good for folks to know that George Soros is actively involved in Ukraine? To what capacity? Well, it seems his variety of groups and societies are funding groups such as the Momentum Movement, Sunrise Movement, and Affinity Groups. You can look up what these folks do. Not only that, didn't he also play an integral part in putting into place the current leader of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky? In addition, what part did Soros play in the 2004 and 2016 uprisings in Ukraine? Number seven, what's the involvement of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, as they seem to be fairly involved and interested in Ukraine? Number eight, what about the Antifa training centers in Ukraine? Who set those up and who's funding them? Number nine, given Putin was posturing for a few months prior to the invasion, talking war rhetoric, why were there no talks through diplomatic channels to defuse the situation? Why did Zelensky take a hardline position, one in which he doubled down and not only threatened to join NATO, but also acquire nuclear weapons? Shouldn't that have been the time for diplomacy, so cooler heads could have prevailed, instead of the West goading on Zelensky further? Number 10, if now, dear leaders, we're worried about human rights and the violation of them, as well as persecution of everyday rights of everyday people, why have we not invaded or attacked China? Why did we instead participate in their recent propaganda campaign? You know, the Winter Olympics. Like I said, at the start, my sympathies lie with the people of both Ukraine and Russia. I pray for both and wish no bloodshed on either side. And while I would like to do what we can to support them within reasonable limits, I take with a humongous grain of salt both what their leaders as well as what you purport to be the truth, which explains my hesitancy to rush headfirst into this. Now, given the media is all about getting to the truth, and our leaders are all about respecting freedom and democracy, which is what I'm told we're standing up for in Ukraine, I'm sure I'll be receiving a speedy reply to my questions very shortly. And is there anything more representative of this freedom and democracy than the citizens of the land openly asking their leaders questions? Looking forward to your reply. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my Rumble account as well. You can also follow me on Locals. Your comments, anything like that is welcome. Please post, and I will see you next time.